budget items. Le personnel de la ville sera disponible pour répondre aux questions budgétaires. I will now invite each agency in reverse alphabetical order to ask questions. You may ask one question with a follow-up. Par ordre alphabétique inverse, j'invite maintenant chaque organisme à poser une question et une question de suivi. When asking your questions, please identify who your question is directed to, and if you are in council chambers, please use the microphone. Lorsque vous posez vos questions, veuillez indiquer à qui s'adresse votre question, et si vous êtes dans la salle du conseil, veuillez le faire au micro. We'll now start with, nous allons commencer par Frédéric Pépin, Radio-Canada.
Bonjour, Monsieur le maire, et félicitations pour votre premier budget.
Merci.
Quand même, bon.
Congratulations for your first budget. Like you said before, it's a very tight budget. You were able to identify some saving, namely at OC Transpo. So how do you see the rest of your mandate? You promised not to increase budget by 2.5%, the taxes, but we understand it's not enough to finance all of the services and programs of the City of Ottawa. How will you proceed in the next years? We will have a lot of work to do in the next months. We will start actually tomorrow. We will be going through a strategic review. We will try to find savings, and we will start to prepare the 2024 budget. So like I said, we have a lot of work trying to find savings everywhere, and we will start that work tomorrow. Follow-up question? Some residents were opposed to the police service budget. This is what we heard throughout the day. We had some examples that things that were done elsewhere using social services staff for mental health issues. Do you think that we should change the way it works in Ottawa? How do you change the funding of these services in Ottawa? Answer. First of all, two things. We started already to work on that, trying to find better alternatives, such as rerouting calls when it's a question of mental health. I do believe that in the following months, we will be able to find solutions and that we will have a better approach to follow through with these calls. At the same time, we have to recognize that during the campaign, the last year campaign, we talked about our budget for emergency services. We talked about it more than once. I would like to increase the emergency services budget and to hire people at the police service, such as 25 more staff. If you're looking at today's budget, this is what I promised. And this is why the resident of Ottawa voted on. So I do believe that we're presenting a good 2023 budget, but we have a lot of work to find solutions and answers, especially when we have calls regarding mental health issues. Thank you so much.
Hi, Mayor Sutcliffe, I'm hoping you can first of all respond to the protest over the police budget that played out in council chambers today, and what, if anything, you would like to see result from this.
What I'd like to see result from what?
Yeah, whether it's, changes, consequence, like if there's anything that you think ought to come out of that.
Out of what?
The act of protest that happened today, disrupting the.
I wasn't sure what you meant,
no,
but
okay.
I acknowledge that there are people in the community who don't agree with the police budget, and we heard from some people at the Police Services Board meeting earlier this week and at previous police board meetings. And I respect the points of view and I sympathize with the experiences of people who want a different approach to policing. But there was an election last year. There was a Democratic election in which I and many other candidates went door to door in the community and listened to the needs of the community, listened to their requests, their aspirations. And what I heard over and over again, the majority of the voices that I heard were from people who supported investing in emergency services, paramedics and policing. I did hear from some people who wanted to cut policing, but I heard from more people who wanted to invest in policing. And that was part of my platform. And the election results speak for themselves. And we have a democratically elected council that voted on the budget today. And so we have to respect that. We have to respect the outcome of the election. We have to respect the outcome of the budget process today. So we'll continue to listen to the people in the community who have differing points of view, and I respect them. But I think we also have to acknowledge that there are a lot of people in the community who value emergency services and want to see investments in them.
What do you make of today's unanimous support around the council table for the overall budget package? And are there any lessons learned, intentions you'll be carrying forward with you for the 2024 budget process?
I'm gratified by the collaboration and the cooperation during this process. We tabled a budget on February the 1st, and a lot of work was done in the last month to improve that budget, to work with councillors, to collaborate, to find consensus. And I think that was reflected in the meeting today and in the outcome of the meeting today. And I'm grateful to have the support of all of council for the budget. But I also know that's one budget, and I'll take a minute or two to celebrate. But now the hard work begins on the next phase of our work together. That work includes the strategic review of our services. It includes the process for setting the priorities for this term of council, and it includes the 2024 budget. There are some big financial pressures and big challenges, which I've spoken about before, that will be part of the 2024 budget process. So we're going to have to do a lot of hard work together to resolve all of that and deliver a budget for 2024. And the work on all of that is going to begin right away.
Thank you, Taylor. We'll now go to Ted Raymond at CTV Ottawa.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yep. Hi, Ted.
Okay. Hi, Mark. This is a question for you, Mr. Mayor. First, I want to ask about the transit budget. I mean, I want your opinion on the approval of the budget, despite the fact that it has this $39 million hole in it that you're hoping to be filled by other levels of government, but you haven't gotten confirmation. Are you confident that you'll get that funding from other levels, or are you prepared for the inevitable result of having that missing funding in the transit budget?
I think we need to work with the other two levels of government on sustainable transit funding going forward. I think you heard that loud and clear during the meeting today, that there's an expectation that the provincial and federal governments will work with us on sustainable funding for transit operations going forward. I'm in regular conversations with elected officials at the other two orders of government, and I'm hopeful that we will get their support. It's clear that public transit ridership in Ottawa and across the country has not returned to pre-pandemic levels. And as you heard today, there are other jurisdictions that are asking the federal government and the provincial government for support in much larger numbers, by the way, than Ottawa's request. So I think it's a reasonable request, and I'm hopeful that our conversations with the other levels of government will be productive.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And my second question is about your planned audit that you had promised during the campaign. I guess that's kind of going to be your next step going forward to 2024. I would assume. What can you tell us about that plan?
I think you heard the basics of the plan today, but there's going to be a working group of myself and two city councilors, including Kathy Curry, the chair of the audit committee. And we're going to work with staff to go through the budget and identify areas where we can find efficiencies. We're going to look at it from a value for money perspective. We're going to look at all the city services we deliver and make sure that we're delivering them effectively and they're having the greatest impact for residents. And I'm hopeful that that will yield not just some savings, but the potential to deliver services more effectively and more powerfully for residents. And that we'll also be able, as a result of that, to reinvest in the areas of priority. And I'm glad that we're going to be doing this review at the same time as we're conducting this exercise to determine what council's priorities are for the next 3 years and 9 months. And so ideally, the outcome of this process will be we'll have more resources to invest in those priorities going forward.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Kate Porter at CBC Ottawa.
Thanks, Kendra. The question's for you, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering if you saw the drone footage of the clear cutting on the lands that will eventually at some point become Taywin, and the rationale that it's for derecho cleanup or to start a farming operation.
I just heard about that after the council meeting, so I haven't had a chance to look into it in detail. I'm happy to get back to you after I know a little bit more about it.
Okay, because I was going to say, like, it's dozens, possibly 70 or more hectares of trees on what's right now an unevaluated wetland that have been completely clear cut, thousands of trees on the ground. And so your predecessor had wanted steep fines in these instances. Well, I mean, we have to determine what happens here, but in instances where you want to deter behavior where someone might contravene the tree protection bylaw, if it makes more financial sense. So I'm just wondering, if they're found to have contravened the bylaw, would you support special fines, which can be in excess of $100,000?
Well, I don't want to talk about one specific example, but obviously we need to enforce our bylaws. And again, I was chairing this meeting today and focused on that. So I don't have a lot of information about this development that came to light during the meeting.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kate.
Thanks, Kate. Next up, we have Cindy Tran at the Canadian Press.
Sorry, I didn't know if you're going to go to Joanne. No questions for you today, Mr. Mayor. My questions are going to be directed to Donna Gray. So today there's been a lot of discussions about the need for mental health services. We heard that from several city councillors today. Today you also mentioned that you're in collaboration with the Ottawa Police about developing some of these services. Would you be able to just expand a little bit more on that, sort of what strategies are currently in place and what the discussion is looking like for that?
Thanks so much, Cindy, for the question. And there has been a lot of discussion in mental health, and it's been a discussion that's been top of mind, obviously, for the last couple of years as we've come out of the pandemic. And it was a priority identified in the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. And so council has been progressively making investments in terms of the role of council in terms of doing mental health, and established a guiding council. And really that guiding council is made up of mental health practitioners that are represented around a team, including from the city services, Ottawa Public Health, Ottawa Police Services, and Ottawa Paramedics. And they've been working on looking at an alternate response to mental health away from necessarily an enforcement response, but really looking at, how do we think about supporting those in our community who are, experiencing significant difficulties. And so where the team has gotten to in that collective work is really looking at what could that look like as a first pilot. As you probably are aware, many municipalities are piloting different models. And this municipality really wanted to target a model that fit them. So the first phase out that they're looking at that we talked about today about rolling out in 2023 is having that alternate number or triage coming from 911. So right now you'd pick one for, police, fire, paramedics, and now we're adding another one for mental health. And what that will do is it will triage to emergency paramedic services. And what they will do is deliver that service in a non-uniformed way, not using an ambulance, but using a direct response team that goes with a mental health practitioner. And they've been piloting a bit of that. They've been piloting that as a pilot with the ministry for I think the last 18, maybe a year. And what we're seeing is significant divergence from the hospital in that. What we are going to do now is add, because one of the gaps that they said was when they get out and they are triaging that, they want the follow-up. So this year we'll be adding a peer support to that team that gets connected to that team. So it will be directly from 911 to this non-uniformed response to a peer support. As well, they have done two other solutions. One is a direct line, just to an emergency, like an emergency distress line that is then connected to a multidisciplinary response team that would go out and respond to that call and divert right away from any kind of emergency response. So the work we're doing this year is figuring out how do we triage those, and then building the team and building the financial plan in terms of how we would fund that.
And do you know when that might come?
Well, I think the first part, expanding the paramedic pilot would be the first part. And we're looking at doing that in the first half of this year. We're thinking that the work that it would take us to do the 911 and the call diversions, we would have by the fall. So we would have that kind of full system. And we're planning then to also have the peer support program in place in the fall too. Because what we would be doing is augmenting existing supports and services and wrapping them around that response. So we're thinking by probably fall, we'll have that full pilot up and running, and can build on the evaluation that we're doing right now with Ottawa University is doing the first phase of the evaluation. They'll be helping us do the full evaluation as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. This concludes today's media availability. Ceci conclut le point de presse d'aujourd'hui. Merci. Thank you.
Merci.